Sideboard participated in that event last year, would love to go back. And Fan Chen Yang looking to make an appearance as well. As you noted, both of these players were undefeated in the Swiss. So the only match that they played against each other was a handshake in round 7. But Andrew did defeat Omniscience in the quarterfinals. So he has some experience in this matchup. He said he defeated it with the power of being on the play, and he does have that power here in the finals as well. Both players finishing the Swiss with 20 match points, but Andrew's tiebreakers were slightly higher, and this is the advantage that he gets because of that. He gets to be on the play in this specific matchup in the finals, and it's very important. This is very much a racing matchup, aggro against combo. And looking over Andrew's list, he's actually well set up to race. He doesn't have any questing druids in the main deck. Instead, he has 2 copies of Overprotect, an additional pump spell that lets him increase his goldfish speed. So his list is built to race, and that's what he's going to have to do here in game 1. The one thing he can do to slow down this combo in the main deck are his 4 copies of Burst Lightning. Abuela's Awakening turns the Omniscience into a creature. So Fan Chen Yang, if he wants to play around a Burst Lightning, either needs to immediately put a second copy of Omniscience onto the battlefield once the first one is there, either through casting it from hand or casting a second Abuela's Awakening, or wait till he has enough mana to cast Abuela's Awakening for X equals 2. Then the Omniscience is a 1/1 with 2 counters on it. But getting to 6 mana against this Gruul deck is a tall order.
Yeah, especially as you said on the draw. I do got to say, though, it's fair, in the case of a tie in the Swiss, that the tie goes to the PT champion. Okay, it only seems fair.
That's just a rich get richer scenario.
He's going to... Looks like I think Andrew's working on a mulligan here, right?
So he's mulligan.
Yeah, he's gonna need all the help he can get, as we've seen Fan Chen Yang just. You might expect a deck where the namesake is Omniscience, an extremely high mana card to struggle against the Gruul aggro deck, but we've seen Fan Chen Yang just without fail today. Obviously, as he is in fact undefeated, just tear right on through these aggressive decks without a problem. But this. Yeah. On the other hand, this is a difficult one. The turn 1 spell, the turn 2 spell to attack here. Ellen Bogan putting the pressure on.
Yeah, these Apharos dismissals from Fan Chen Yang have been critical against the aggro decks, and he has it again here on turn 1. This is the only possible turn 1 play in the deck. So the ideal start for Fan Chen Yang, and he finds another dispersal off of the Surveil. So he's going to have another one next turn if he wants it. I wouldn't be surprised if this turn he plays a 2-mana spell. A lot of the cantrips in this deck are 2 mana. So he can play Philagi, for example, here, and then next turn can play another 2-mana spell, hold up Dispersal, or he can play that temporary lockdown that he just found. And now Andrew has to wonder, how many creatures do I want to play here?
Well, and the Archaeologist does a decent job. I mean, obviously, he doesn't block all the damage from the claw here, but it does jump in the way a little bit and sort of encourage Andrew to put more onto the board, which obviously then plays into the lockdown. And Yang, we know, has a Verge in hand, so will be able to cast it without any problems. Don't have to worry about your mana here in this game. So things lining up okay for him to survive the early onslaught at a decent life total.
Yeah, Andrew just redeploys the Emberheart Challenger and then places Restless Ridgeline tapped. So we'll see if, we just saw that Fan Chen decided that was a good enough board for him to want to play the temporary lockdown. He didn't really have any other options that turn, so I think it made sense to use his mana. Hopefully for him, next turn he can find another dig spell, maybe a stock up to play alongside the Apharos Dispersal.
But might have caught an Archaeologist in there too. So it looks like he'll have, and that Dispersal it just gives you a lot of of flexibility.
Interesting
as well. So. Okay, Andrew is also a little deep in the tank here because he, not because necessarily things are bad, but he's just counting it out, right? Trying to figure out not just how do I do the most damage this turn, but how do I do the most damage to you 2-3 turns from now? And the answer is probably also how he does the most damage this turn. It's play Screaming Nemesis and attack.
Yeah. So Fan Chen did have Archaeologist in hand. They could have played that last turn alongside a Pharaoh's Dispersal, decided to lock down instead. And that makes sense if you're expecting Screaming Nemesis, right? You don't think your opponent's going to give you any additional creatures to exile with the lockdown.
Especially when they know
unlikely that. Yeah, when he knows about it. So now gets to play another tap lane with that Meticulous Archive after his Archaeologist, set up his draws further, and bounce this Screaming Nemesis. The Archaeologist will be a good chump blocker on Nemesis later in the game since it has no power.
True. Yeah, Yang has done an excellent job, as he's done in every game. We've watched surviving the early onslaught here. Now he just needs to turn the corner, which is where I guess, kind of stalled out a little bit last game, and then was able to, last round we saw him, and then was able to draw into it eventually because, hey, even if you whiff on all your cantrips, that means that the spells you're looking for aren't far off the top of your deck, and he was able to find one and close it out. But that is the point of the game where he's at, where he's now facing the bigger spells from Andrew, the more mana. Andrew's Gruul deck being able to set up a big finish turn, as we've seen throughout the day from the red decks. And he's really leaning on that dispersal he's got in hand, but he's got to find a way to set up his own Omniscience combo from here.
Yeah, he hasn't done even step one towards the combo, which is put Omniscience into the graveyard. He does have, though, he has Omniscience Charter Course in hand. So step one is in hand. He has yet to execute it. So now he needs to find the Abuela's Awakening. But really, having all of this disruption, the Pharaoh's dispersals and the temporary lockdown, this is what the early turns are about in the aggro matchups. So Fan Chen executing his game plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Paw Patch recruit coming in clutch here is going to be able to pump the Emberheart Challenger, and that means there's no free block here from the Philology Archaeologist, but a couple surveils still coming from the dispersal.
Yeah, all kinds of ways out of the Omniscience deck just to churn, right? Like, that's why it's so effective at putting together its combo. It's just so many ways to just see cards, and that looks like
that's Abuela's Awakening, but Fan Chen is 1 mana short. He has 2 mana to chart here, put the Omniscience into the graveyard, finds a blocker to help survive.
Well, that's not bad.
From now, I think what's important for Fan Chen is land 6, because that will allow him to Abuela's Awakening for 2 and have a 3/3 that can't get Burst Lightning, a 3/3 Omniscience. But I'm not sure if he has land 6 or if Andrew has the Burst Lightning. And Andrew sees the Abuela's Awakening. He knows the combo is potentially online next turn. Doesn't know that Fan Chen already has the invasion in hand. So he might be in a spot where he decides to take a risk that Fan Chen will fizzle out, attempting to cantrip through his deck for that invasion. But we know that won't be the case.
Right. Well, Andrew's done what he's supposed to do in the matchup, which is apply all the pressure he can. Fanchen's just, this deck has gone through so many cards, and even now he's staring down a ton of cards. But Ellen Bogan's going to really turn it up. Here comes okay, working through this here. We got the roll coming in.
Yeah, so the Emberheart Challenger is now a 7/5. Because of 1 prowess trigger, +2/+0 from Rage, the +++ from counter from the previous Paw Patch recruit trigger, and the monstrous roll. But this is still only going to be coming across for 6 damage, 4 trample, plus the Paw Patch recruit for 2. So well short of Fan Chen's still relatively healthy 13-point life total.
That's right.
And yeah, taps out for an Innkeeper's Talent. So this game 1 looks like it's going to go to Fan Chen Yang.
This Omniscience deck is just time and again, just with weathered the storm. Obviously, in large part due to lockdown, but the Archaeologists have just done exactly what the whole deck is designed to do, which is see more cards in the deck as it cantrips through. But it also has soaked up a ton of damage in the process, which allows you to get to a turn like this at 13 life instead of at 7 life, and be able to actually untap into this combo.
There have been 3 Archaeologists cast this game, and Fan Chen's at 5. They've all soaked up at least 3 damage.
Yeah, exactly.
So
there you
very
go.
critical here. And now Andrew going to make Fan Chen play it out, but this game is absolutely over. So step 1 is to use the Invasion of Arcavios to grab a Johann's Stopgap from the sideboard. that can return the invasion to hand and draw a card. Then you recast the invasion and you can get back the stopgap from your graveyard over and over again. That lets Fan Chen draw his deck, find a second copy of invasion. This second copy finds this town ain't big enough. And now this town ain't big enough can allow Fan Chen to grab basically every other card in his deck and sideboard.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah.
That's all.
And it gets Sunder the Gateway. That will allow him to incubate a bunch, make a bunch of incubate tokens.
Bounce all of your stuff.
Yes, and the Johann stopgap will bounce all of Andrew's permanents. As I said before, we have entered the explanation part of the game.
Andrew, I think this is going to make him go through it here. It seems like we're working through it together at the table here. Yep. There we go. We've got it. We've demonstrated the loop. We're picking them up. Game 1 to Fan Chen Yang on Azorius Omniscience. 1 win away from the title here at our Showdown.
Andrew just wants to make sure that he understands exactly how this combo works.
Yeah.
And Fan Chen, you saw there, left a card in his library. He's going to need 1 extra turn to attack for the win with all of those incubate tokens, but he also gets to put all of his copies of Confounding Riddle into his hand and can cast them all for free. So he passes the turn against an opponent that has no battlefield, and Fan Chen has 4 counter spells in hand. Andrew realizes what's happening, but now he fully understands exactly how the combo works, and that might help him in the post-sideboard games.
Yeah, definitely he's got to think about, because when he's thinking about, okay, not the, he understands how returning omniscience to play works. It's where can I interact with your loop, right? Because remember, it's open deck lists here in the top 8, but and I'm sure Andrew's familiar with the format, but this loop, as we've talked about in the deck, is a little newer. So he's just trying to find any ways that he might be able to interact with it there. As we take a look at his sideboard here, and what do we see as ways to interact with that? Running down, I see a lot of cards that kind of makes sense where you're going to put them, right? But what does he find for Azorius Omniscience?
So the most important card in the sideboard are those 3 copies of Paw Patch Formation.
Right.
They will destroy an Omniscience and stop the combo mid-loop, and they can also destroy temporary lockdown. So those 3 certainly coming in. The only other real option here for Andrew is Torch the Tower if he wants more 1-mana ways to disrupt a fast combo. Fan Chen, we interviewed him earlier today. He knows about, obviously, the vulnerability of early Abuelo's Awakening Omnisciences to cheap burn spells. He tries to play more of a controlling game, especially post-sideboard against these red decks. But just having that, having the threat of it may be worth it for Andrew. The one issue with Torch the Tower is that it doesn't have the other mode that Burst Lightning has of going upstairs. But Torch, if you force Fan Chen into a spot where he plays into it, will exile the Omniscience, stopping it from being returned by future Abuelo's Awakenings.
There you go. All right. Well, let's take a look at the sideboard here for Azorius. Honestly, everything went according to plan there. Your deck looks pretty well set up to deal with the aggressive decks. But, okay, we're talking about Gruul specifically. Anything that changes when you're looking at this?
Nothing, major is going to change. Just going to bring in some extra removal. Has the 4th copy of Lockdown, has the 1 copy of Day Judgment, and a Get Lost. All of those will come in. I'm not sure if anything else will come in. Maybe you want stock up because you're planning to play a longer game. So that is an option, but the rest of these cards are not going to play very well in the Gruul matchup. And some of them, like the Johann Stopgap, the This Town Ain't Big Enough, and the Sunder the Gateway, are cards that you want to leave in your sideboard because that's critical to the combo. So certainly those will not be coming in. The Grand Abolishers and Cavern of Souls is the plan against control decks, not against aggro. And I don't think the negates are very good either. You can maybe you want negate against Paw Patch Formation. That's a consideration. So maybe Fan Chen decides he wants those, but really just want to get the extra removal in so that you can play more of that controlling game and you're not forced to just try to win a straight race.
Yeah, I was going to say the negates actually, are appealing in that if your opponent's plan is to answer Omniscience after it's in play, well, then that means you'll be able to have negate to protect it, of course. But what that doesn't help with is when your opponent just goes 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, and you're staring at a hand of negates and combo pieces and not anything to deal with the board.
Exactly. And, we've seen a similar dynamic play out in Modern with the Teamer Breach deck, where in the post board games, when your opponents have a bunch of hate, you don't, still play the same go all in by turn 3 or 4 game. You just win with card advantage and grind through the hate. And this Azorius Omniscience deck can do that to an extent. That's going to be the main plan for Fan Chen Yang, to beat these burn spells and pop patch formations, not necessarily to try to find one of these 2 negates in order to go off.
Well, and we talked about going 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2 is in the books here for Ellen Bogan, as we have Heartfire here and Amber Heart Challenger. But Amber Heart Challenger getting bounced right away.
And we have seen Fan Chen Yang have turn 1 of Virus Dispersal almost every game against these red decks, and he always seems to surveil into another copy. He did there as well. It's currently on top of his deck, so he doesn't want it this turn. Gonna play the Archaeologist.
I think he drew that one as well for the first turn there. So sometimes just heat check. Is it my weekend? Oh, the perfect card on top. Let's go. Yeah. The stuff Magic Dreams are made of right there. And now the Archaeologist gives you a blocker. It finds another one. The third land is on tap, ready to go, along with it looks like a lockdown. Well, if you're Fan Chen Yang, everything going according to plan over there.
Yeah, and it very telling how the dynamic changes in the post-sideboard games, where Fan Chen selected the second copy of Afaris Dispersal over Abuelo's Awakening with that Falaji Archaeologist. He doesn't have a spare copy of Abuelo's Awakening in hand. He just knows he needs to play the control role early. He will find another Awakening when he needs it if the game goes long enough.
That's right. And Ellen Bogan just forcing through damage here, not knowing that there's lockdown in hand, but knowing that it's a possibility, as it was in the first game, just chooses to force through damage with the Rage there, gets the Archaeologist off the board. Unfortunately, as expected, his creatures do run straight into a temporary lockdown, which is one of the, less aptly named Magic cards I've ever seen, because I've never seen one of those removed in Standard.
Oh, Andrew does have those pop patch formations and rebuilds rather quickly from this lockdown. Fan Chen, with a very similar draw to what he had last game, has another copy of Falaji Archaeologist in hand and another copy of Afaris Dispersal. Decides to play out Archaeologist here instead of playing the stock up that he drew, which would have been a more mana-efficient play because he needs to play defense. Right. And that's a win for Ellen Bogan. This might be a game now with the Charter Course found where Fan Chen Yang finds a bunch of the card selection spells and just doesn't have enough time to deploy them all.
Well, yeah, and Ellen Bogan's rebuild was extremely good, as you noted. He had his lands this game, so he was able to get the Nemesis down and just immediately poke through damage while still reloading. And look at this. It's a huge attack just right after that Wrath. So a couple mana here from Yang. So the things are like to change as we go with the Dispersal.
Fan Chen having to take a point of damage off Attica Waste because his Verges do not make blue mana yet. So 10 for this Dispersal, presumably on Screaming Nemesis. And Andrew's giving this a think. He thought about playing something before passing priority, and then this Dispersal was cast. I wonder if it's a Monstrous Rage in hand as the last card.
There's an Omniscience.
But no Abuelo's Awakening, had to put it in the graveyard to take that second Dispersal. So Fan Chen is very close here to comboing, but needs to find one of 3 copies of the Abuelo's Awakening. If he finds land 5, he does have an Invasion in hand. He can rebuy the Abuelo's Awakening in the graveyard with Invasion, but that will leave him completely vulnerable to Ellen Bogan's next attack.
Well, yeah, and you see his hand; it's loaded with card selection, Charter Course, the Invasion, even the Riddle. He's got everything he needs, except time. That is the one thing his hand cannot buy him, and that is Ellen Bogan's going to try to poke through the last 2 points here. But this is a really, really critical turn because Yang he's 1 win away from winning this thing, and he's got everything he needs in hand to find that win condition if he is able to live for a few more turns.
Yeah, and putting the Omniscience into the graveyard off of that second dispersal was critical. That's step one of the
Yeah.
combo. He hadn't achieved that yet, and so he was looked to be a ways away. Now, much closer.
Oh gosh.
Third dispersal. So because of the third dispersal, Fanchen should feel comfortable casting stock up, and he does.
Yes, a huge draw for him there, as it has been every time he drew it. He's able to stock up into, well, I can't tell if we.
Now it's a temporary lockdown,
Yeah.
stock up, Philology Archaeologist, and 2 lands are the 5 he's looking at. I don't think he has land 5 in hand, so I wouldn't be surprised if he takes land lockdown here.
Yeah, you talked about him playing that control role, and he's not been, just the threat of the combo has, I don't know, we don't know how much it's actually delayed Ellenbogen, but it's kept the game in a situation where Yang is just always right around the corner from winning. So every turn he buys with these control spells, by playing the control route, even if you don't think it's going to win the game in the long way fairly, it just buys him time to find those combo pieces, because here he's going to live while digging and reloading with stock up, while being able to play another spell on this turn. And it just, every turn he's able to do that without taking the big combo hit from Ellenbogen is one turn closer to finding his combo piece. And he does have that 5th land there off it, as you mentioned.
Yeah. Doesn't need the mana, wants to surveil, so he took Meticulous Archive over the untapped land, bins a land off the surveil, and he's just digging for Boiler's Awakening. This is the last copy of Afara's Dispersal. Excuse me, by the way. There are 3 copies in the deck. So
Yang might add a 4th after this weekend if he is able to pull it out. It has been an MVP in this finals.
I'm sure if you told him he was going to be in a top 8 with 5 red decks, there would have been 4 in his main deck, and probably 4 lockdowns as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, this Screaming Nemesis hits the battlefield yet again for Andrew Ellenbogen, and yet again, I think it might end up leaving the battlefield right back to his hand. All right. Well, Heartfire Hero going to get in. Still going to poke some damage in
and
at Yang.
Boiler's Awakening. So, and there's a Confounding Riddle in Yang's hand. The Confounding Riddle will protect the Omniscience creature from any burn spell that Ellenbogen is holding back.
Yeah,
I think this is going to be game, set, match. Fanchen Yang.
Well done. You called it. That is Omniscience hitting play. This is the combo going off. Ellenbogen, looking at his hand, he is tapping mana. He does go for the Burst Lightning, but there's the riddle. That represents the key counterspell like we talked about. He spent all of these turns just setting up his hand. That extra card off of stock up, the extra turn you buy for an extra draw step, all of it came together perfectly wielded here by Fanchen Yang, who now is tearing through his deck to finish it off with his combo. Absolutely masterclass of a performance with Omniscience this weekend, man. This has been wildly impressive.
Yes, just navigated through these sea of aggro decks. And so Forest Dispersal really, to me, has been the MVP, along with Temporary Lockdown, playing that control role, buying himself time. And with all of the card selection that this deck plays, it is really not that difficult to find the few pieces of the combo, especially with Dispersal. You know, both games, It was Dispersal that put the Omniscience in the graveyard. So his removal spells were functioning as setup spells for the combo at the same time. Whenever you can do that, have a cards that have multi-functionality simultaneously, you've hit on something really powerful.
I mean, this deck looked great, and we'll talk more with him in the interview we'll get to in a few minutes. But Fanchen Yang just looked amazing this weekend with that Azorius Omniscience deck. Ross, what is your take after watching it in action all day today? Is this a deck of the weekend or a deck of the future?
It might be a deck that I have to revisit. I actually played it on stream earlier this week, so I have some matches under my belt with it, but Fanchen's list with the innovative loops is not something I had seen. That he credited a Japanese player with who did well with it recently at Haruya. Most of the list have some sort of cards that are in the sideboard only to be win conditions, and this list has found a way to effectively win the game with cards that are also functional. So I think that really helps you and just gain those marginal edges over the course of a tournament. And I'm sure they came up for him today.
And it looks like we have him, excuse me, sitting down now. So here we go. We will head down to the booth with Fanchen Yang, who is the winner of the standard event here in Madison, Wisconsin, NRG Championship Series. Fanchen Yang was dominant from start to finish. Let's head down to the booth and see what he has to say about this weekend. Fanchen, how's it going? Oh, I think we're working on our audio here.
Yep.
We'll get you in. Hey, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. Not bad. Not bad. Glad to see you two again.
Oh yeah. Hey, we chatted earlier and we said we'll see you later. And hey, we sure did, didn't we? That was a wild performance throughout the top 8. You just tearing through these aggro decks.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a little bit surprising. Sometimes the aggro decks can goldfish a little bit faster, but a lot of them have cut the ley line of resonance, which like slows them down quite a bit. So the pressure isn't as much, and you can sort of have a little bit more time than you used to. Here.
Yeah, certainly bought yourself a lot of time with those Afaris dispersals and temporary lockdowns. Have to say those were your MVPs through this top 8, no?
Absolutely. The dispersal, like the matchup really hinges on how many dispersals you can draw.
Right.
And I was very fortunate to draw like quite a few there. So
yeah. Look, talk about your weekend now. You've got this under your belt. You've got the qualifications. You've got the prize winnings, of course. You've got everything that comes with winning an NRG series. What's the plan tomorrow? Are you going to run back some Pioneer?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to get back to Pioneer. I like the format quite a bit. I think it's still like pretty open, given that there haven't been any big events to really explore the meta. As far as like today goes, I guess I'll like process it in a little bit here. So.
Well, I'll help you process it a little bit because I'm curious, as someone who is going to be playing a standard tournament next weekend myself, are there any changes that you would make to this list given your experiences today?
I don't think so. I think the list is pretty tight at the moment. Like I said earlier, this deck doesn't necessarily have bad matchups. It all depends on how prepared people are. I guess if there was anything, the deck is like kind of cold to Stone Brain, so you could play like a Sorcerer's Spyglass for that.
Okay, good to know. Good to know. Well, congratulations on the win. I would say we have to stop meeting like this, but I'm sure you'd be happy to keep doing this over the course of the year.
Absolutely, definitely. So,
well, congratulations, man. We'll see you back tomorrow.
Yeah, yep. Hopefully so. But have a great rest of your night. You too.
I'll sneak in one final question. Have you given any thought to what you want your token to be? As the winner of a showdown, you get a custom token from Inkland.
Yeah, so I've actually like thought about this a little bit. So I really like tokens where there isn't an official token for them yet. So there's one token that's an XX orb. That's a very old card. There's also an emblem that WotC has forgotten to print. Karn Living Legacy from Dominaria United. Does not actually have an emblem token. So that would be a nice one.
Hey, good to know. Well, you have that opportunity now as a result, as all of our Showdown winners do. So one last time, Fanchen Yang, congratulations on winning our 10K today.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us. Ross, it was a blast getting to cover all these matches of Magic with you today, and we saw some great ones.
Yeah, I had a great time. I'm looking forward to doing more coverage here on the NRG series over the course of the year. Season 1 only halfway done. We have 2 more events coming up for that season, and then a whole Season 2 and the NRG Championships. So I'm here at the beginning of the year. I got to see sort of everything unfold. And maybe we're seeing, an emerging force on the NRG series in Fanchen Yang, because he was very, very impressive here and very impressive in his interview pondering the orb as to what token to make.
That's right. Well, on behalf of everyone else on the coverage team, welcome Ross to the squad this season. Thrilled to have you. It was a blast to cover the matches with you today. And thank you everybody for watching. It was awesome to hang out with all of you watching Magic on a Saturday. And you know what? We get to do it again tomorrow. Come back in the morning. Check out the stream. We've got that Pioneer event. More NRG Championship Series. We'll see you then.